So about maybe a little over 3 years ago, I started having discussions with my board members about birth rates. And I think they all thought I was crazy, and what did that have to do with anything as far as, what did it have to do with peanuts? And so I started looking at this a little bit more and putting more data together in places that I could find it. And then we started looking at what the future holds and looking at some non-traditional uses of peanuts. So that's where we'll finally get to today. Now this is a map of birth rates. And if you look at birth rates, you have to have 2.1 births per female, 2.1 live births per female to sustain a population in a country. So the countries in pink are not sustaining their population right now. The countries in blue, those in pink are all below 2, and the ones that are red are below 1. So we have actually, and we'll talk about it, some countries that have a birth rate now below 1. The countries in blue are the ones that still have birth rates that are above the 2.1, and the darkest blues are significantly above. So let's look at what's happening in the trend right there. How many of you remember just maybe 10 years ago when they said by 2050 we're going to have 2 billion more people and we're not going to be able to feed them all? Do you remember that? Nobody remembers that? Oh, that's good. I see a few hands now. Well, that isn't the first or the last prediction that ever happened that didn't come true. And I guess we could turn it around, they would. So looking at some of the birth rate snapshots, this is a little hard to see, but if you look at world birth rates, in 1963 we were at 5.3. In 2000 we were at 2.7. And 2023 at 2.2. And that's worldwide. So essentially we're just about at sustaining the birth rate, and the trends are going down if you look at all the trends that are there. If you look at some of the categories here, looking at income categories, it just goes to show you that the highest income individuals have the lowest birth rates right now. They're more concerned about being able to deal with what they've got. As you get into middle incomes, the middle income category right now is just sustaining population right now. And then if you go to upper middle, they're also upper middle income is still only about 1.5 on the birth rate scale. And if you look at countries with less than 1, Hong Kong, the Republic of Korea, Puerto Rico, and Macau. And you'd sort of think that Macau and Hong Kong might be somewhat similar because they're pretty much neighbors there when you look at it. So if we look at some of the top countries that are there, you look at countries like Central African Republic, the Republic of Congo, Mali, Niger, Somalia. Those are all countries that have significantly high birth rates. The issue that we get into is that those are countries that have a real problem, and that's the fact that their economy can't really afford to buy peanuts from us for what we have to grow peanuts. So we've got to manage a change that's here, and I think it may be one of the most significant changes in history that we've got to figure out how to manage right now. So this is domestic consumption by marketing year in millions of pounds. And so you can see over time, going back to the 80s, we've had an uptrend going back to the 80s. But the thing I have is that I have two lines that Dr. Fletcher was kind enough to humor me and do a 10-year and a 5-year trend line. So on the 10-year, you see a little bit of an increase, and on the 5-year trend line, we start seeing things go down. So the next thing is looking at government purchases, and this is a pretty sad situation when we look at it. The government purchases really struggle. There were some high years back in the back, and that was when Charles Hatcher was the chairman of the subcommittee on agriculture that dealt with feeding programs, and he got a lot of peanuts bought by the government. But you can see whether we look at the 5-year or 10-year trend line, it's a downtrend. If you look at peanut exports, again, looking at a 5-year or 10-year, both of those are in a downtrend. If you look at peanut butter exports, again, when we look at it, you've got a downtrend for 10 years, but actually one of the nice things is the 5-year trend line is up a little bit. So, you know, there are bright spots out there yet. If we look at peanut butter consumption, it's on the increase, but it's slowed down in the 5-year trend line. If you look at snack nut consumption, really we're just struggling to hold our own with snack nut consumption, and it's going down. The trend lines don't look that great there. Let's look at candy consumption. For the 10-year trend line, candy consumption was an uptrend, but if you look at the 5-year trend line, it doesn't look good. What's happening with that? You already heard it today. Chris talked about it. Chris told you what it was. GLP-1s are hammering candy right now. And so I have a theory about it. I've just started on my Facebook post reminding everybody that if you want to take and get a little bit of protein in your diet, 2 of those peanut butter pumpkins that Reese's has got has 4 grams of protein. So if you're going to eat candy, you can do it without guilt. Just get peanut butter pumpkins from Reese's and get your 4 grams of protein. So per capita consumption, you can see that if we look at the 10-year trend line, basically per capita has been pretty flat. But if we look at the 5-year trend line, the picture becomes more concerning. Looking at shell peanut exports, you can see that both trend lines are down there. Look at Canada, there's a little brighter spot right there. Canada is showing an increase trend line, which is good. I mean, it's logical that they're one of our neighbors. They're our wealthiest neighbor that can afford to buy our stuff. So makes a lot of sense. Plus the fact that they like peanut butter in Canada. So that helps us. If you look at shell peanut exports to China, China was one that everybody in the industry was all excited about when we went to China, and nobody told the truth. And see, my mom always told me to tell the truth, but the thing that caused increases in exports to China was we had some really trashy crops. They were junk. So the industry sent in-shell farmer stock peanuts without doing anything with them because it's going to cost too much to deal with them here. So China in the trend line, but I don't make a lot out of trend lines when you have anomalies there, and I don't have a lot of confidence that long-term China is going to be our best customer in the world either. If you look at shell peanut exports to the EU, you can see that we've had problems on the 10-year trend line, but surprisingly, and everybody thinks that things are bad, Argentina had some bad crops, and our 5-year trend line is up with the EU right now. Looking at shell peanut exports to Japan, Japan has a much lower birth rate than we have even. We're at about 1.6 in the U.S. They're 1.3 or 1.4 right now. So if you look at it, the short-term trend line is in a downtrend where it was pretty flat up until then. And sometime I'll challenge you to go to there's a clock you can look at, a population clock for Japan. I love looking at it because Japan loses a consumer 1 per minute right now. You can watch the clock tick down. So you can go Google that and find it. So if you don't think birth rates are real, birth rate issues are real. And then another bright spot, even though it's slacked off a little bit or it's slowing down slightly, is the whole issue of Mexico And Mexico is getting a good flavor for American peanuts. So I just think that we have some bright spots there in the edible market. Now, this is the chart that Stanley almost stole my thunder. This is the chart that Dr. Liu presented at the Cotton and Peanut Field Day on cotton. And so she was looking, and these are USDA numbers, so I'm going to anticipate that the difference might be from this and from Amanda's charts is that these are US numbers. But on cotton, if you look at her numbers going back for 28 years, and that's USDA numbers of cost production and revenue, only 4 out of 28 years did we break even or make money. Only 4 out of 28. And I'm going to come back to this, but I want to show you, we can take poke our chest out on peanuts because the bankers thought that we were doing pretty good this past year, but we may not do so well if we make a lot of peanuts in future years. But look at what happened in peanut revenue. In 30 years, only 5 years. And so when I got started looking at this, and I said, if anybody ever gave us a gift to tell farmers where we have had the biggest impact at the Peanut Commission, and John Harrell, you can help me tell everybody this, where we've had the biggest impact at the Peanut Commission in promotion, and it's not in research, but it's in legislation, because we wouldn't be in the peanut business had we not had government payments. And Amanda did a great job of pointing out why government programs are important. And you know, we're other than government payments, we're not sustainable in the peanut business. So we've got to have a vision, and I talk about this as a Carver vision. Carver had over 300 uses of peanuts that he developed at Tuskegee, and about half of them were non-food uses. So I think we've got to start having a vision again for things that we can do. So my board started making some investments. We invested some money in a research project in Illinois with the National Bioplastics Lab with USDA. And I have some really neat plastic samples that they developed, and one of those has a really, really higher melting point than HDPE plastic, so benefits there. I was really interested in Dr. Chen's work, and to see that Dr. Chen, you had quoted Dr. Andu Latumer. We've actually funded some whole fat, high oleic feeding studies. We're doing it with traditional peanuts now. But the chickens, when they put the traditional and the peanut ration with whole fat peanuts in the ration, the chickens eat the whole fat peanut ration first. They like it. If you ever ate a soybean, you ever ate peanut, you understand it. So not only was it that though, but it was things like the fact that on layers, egg production went up because the hens' estrogen levels increased when they had high oleic peanut diet. So you had an increase in egg production. The yolk color got better so they could take the marigold petals out of the feed. So that was one less additive that they had to have. And most significant was the fact that saturated fat levels in the egg decreased with high oleic peanuts in a layer ration. In broilers, the thing they found was that meat color was better. They liked the diet, and saturated fat also declined in the meat of the layers. So, you know, a lot of good things that we've got to keep building on. And then another thing we did with the New Materials Institute at UGA was they have converted peanut oil to a drying oil. Now, to just explain what drying oils are, they're used in paints and varnishes to make it dry. So it makes it substantial, but they are oils that will dry. And the two that we know best are tongue and linseed, and they're very expensive. And they actually converted peanut oil to a drying oil, and they've really been kind of promoting this, and they're happy about the fact that they've been very successful with that, and are now looking at corrosive studies. They know what what the wear is based on friction studies, and now they're looking at corrosion studies on that product. So, we're making progress with new uses that we have. Future vision, I think that we've got to really have a little bit of a thought as to what we're going to do. Where do we go on sustainable fuels? But as long as the EU is there, and they have a mandate that's now 20% of the ships that arrive in the EU, 20% of the fuel has to be sustainable fuel. And with the Port of Savannah, I just think that we can't ignore the fact that that might be a possibility for us, especially given the fact that we've got a breeder right now that's working on a high oil peanut that would change what we're doing with that market. We've got to look at, things like that higher oil content. We've got to look at what we can do to do more with the plastics, maybe even to medical advances. One of the interesting things is that the safest breast implant for women that need to have reconstructive surgery after cancer, the safest breast implant that they can put in right now is a peanut oil implant. So we've got to look at more opportunities like that. And then to reduce our cost and to address some things, we have to get over the issue of looking at GMO. I was talking with somebody who's a major user, a company that is a major user of chickens, and we're meeting and working on some issues right now. And he told me, he said, why do I care if you have GMO peanuts? I'm already using GMO corn and GMO soy, and we're selling chickens in Europe. And so I think that we've got to quit hamstringing our breeders, and I think we have. We've got a great young breeder that is well versed in genetic modification because he's doing it in cotton before he came to the University of Georgia. And why is that critical? The only way we're going to take and hit those blue countries, and Bob, I'm not going to take all your message, but I'm going to tell you, listen to what Bob tells you today, because the way that we're going to be able to go to those countries is we're going to have to be able to grow peanuts cheap enough that somebody can afford to buy them. And so I think that's, and we still got to make a living. Listen, farmers have got to make a living, and farmers are in trouble. If you didn't look at those two charts and look where we are, farmers are in trouble. And I can tell you that I talk on a fairly regular basis with about 3 bankers, and all 3 of them are telling me that last year was difficult, and 26 likely will be more difficult to find ways to keep farmers on the farm. And some farmers are just saying, I'm not going to do it. I was just talking with a really, really good farmer. He's trying to figure out what kind of cover crop he can plant this year because he's not going to plant anything else. And I need to talk to Amanda, because Amanda, I think, needs farming equity if he's doing a cover crop and not getting anything for it, right? That is farming equity. So we've got to be doing things we can. Seeds of hope, I just think that we've got to continue having a vision for doing things differently. We can't ignore the domestic market. We can't ignore the export market. Feeding is still our primary possibility to sell peanuts. But we can't let that be the only thing that we're doing. So we have to look at, the other things we have there that we can come up with. And we've got to look at anything that helps us add value for the farmer. I have a really good friend that has a business. He first of all has an ag chemical formulation business, and then he has a farm market. And we were talking and I said, you know, you're gonna think this is a crazy idea, but I think we gotta look at chicken tractors. Does anybody know what a chicken tractor is? Nobody? It's just a movable chicken coop, that's all it is. Go to Lake Watcher Farms in Kentucky on their website and you can see them in use. But I told him, I said, I know folks think that's crazy, but everybody tells me we need another rotation crop. So what if we could do some rotation with chickens? And he told me, he said, that's not crazy. He said, I got them on my farm in Lee County right now. So we have folks that are looking at these kind of things, and we have to leave no stone unturned as we start trying to find out how we deal with the fact that we're going to have a shrinking edible market if population trends stay where they are. And we've got to be more creative and think about things just like Carver did in 1910 when he was at Tuskegee. I'd like to acknowledge charts from the World Bank, from Dr. Yongshuan Liu, from the Institute of Health Metrics at the University of Washington, and Dr. Stanley Fletcher. You know, I like to mine data from a lot of folks, and all of the information here was mined from experts, and I think that it behooves us to listen to those experts.